Hello, welcome. Let's start standing. And just standing for the moment. And take a look at your feet. Because most people, we're not really aware of how we're standing. And I speak a lot with people who have changed their desk sitting to desk standing. So now you're standing for 8 hours a day. And how are we standing when we're standing? The first thing I see with most people, there is an external rotation. So they're standing like this. Most people actually walk like this. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And most people stand with their pelvis pushed forward. So this is kind of, I always harp on that we should be more cognizant, first of all, of what we're doing a lot of, especially if we have pain in the body, meaning idiopathic pain, we don't know where it's coming from. There's no injury per se, right? No, I tore a muscle or I broke a bone. So, number one, how am I standing? Like this is kind of what I see a lot. And if you put yourself next to a mirror and just kind of see, well, am I actually leaning backwards? What happens here is my head is still over my pelvis. This is where my brain wants to be, because the center of plumb line of weight distribution down into my pelvis is the bestest from my head, from my brain, when it's over the hip, because that's a big joint. That's a lot of stability potentially. But if we're standing like this, there is actually a very big crunch and an arch happening in the low back. And then what people, for me, for most years corrected when I first started doing Pilates, they said, well, tuck your pelvis, right? So now you went from leaning backward to now tucking your tail under. And now you're even, I don't say if you're worse off, but it's kind of like nothing's fixed just yet. You just took one shape and put another pattern on top of it. We don't want to tuck our pelvis. So long spiel, looking at your toes, looking at your feet. And we're going to take our feet and turn them slightly inward. Now that should also result, or should be happening, from your hips, from your legs, right? My thigh bones are turning in. I wore my shorts today so everybody can see where my knees are looking. You don't want your knee to look into a different direction than your toes are looking. If your toes turn out, your knee turns out. If your leg turns in, your toes turn in. That is just good mechanics. So that's number one. Pivoting on your heels to turn your toes to be pigeon-toed. And even just feeling this, it's almost a little bit impossible to still lean back here. It's still possible, but it should be a little bit less possible. And then you're going to so kind of taking a little feel here, how that feels on your back. And for most people who have a lower back issue or pain, that should slightly be better, because now you're less crunching or sitting down, pushing the discs forward, so kind of decreasing the space between your vertebrae, and having a lot of that upper body pressure going down right into that area. The pressure that should be going into your pelvis, down to your legs, is actually going into your lumbar spine. So number one, so find yourself a little bit more internally rotated. And we're going to be working on this quite a bit. And then noticing, where is my butt? If my hip is pushed forward. So this is another pattern that goes with that external rotation. If my hip is pushed forward and my legs are turned out, my thigh bone actually is always slightly pushing away from the acetabulum, from that deep connection inside the hip joint. As you turn your legs in and send your sits bones slightly back, like sticking your butt out, softening the front of the ribs, now you have less of a pull out of the hip joint, and that's kind of what the body needs. It's connection. It's joint connection, so movement can happen in there. Okay. And if it's pulled out, the body almost, the brain literally senses, I'm losing my leg. And then it starts to hold and create weird pattern on top of our own weird patterns. Long story, but I think it's very important to know why we're doing certain things. And you putting exercise on top of a shitty, excuse my language, posture or a less advantageous pattern that you have and you've had for many years is not going to change it. If you don't, and this is my last little soapbox moment, probably not, but if you exercise the way you live, it's not going to change things. So you have to, I mean, you can do whatever you want, and you're here, so you're already conscious of and aware of that. We have to change the pattern within through conscious and slow movement, and sometimes difficult movement and weird movement to really change something that you're doing every day. I was trained literally to walk like this by my parents because I naturally walked more like that, and they've thought that was wrong. So, you know, wherever that pattern is coming from, doesn't matter. We're here, we're changing it now. So, meaning your exercise can't be as fast as your daily living, and it can't have any distraction, music, TV, other people, blah, blah, blah. You have to really focus on what you're doing, because otherwise you're going to miss it. You're going to skip the important steps. So here we are. We're going to just turn our legs out.